Hello everyone, I'm Father Perrone. Welcome to Treasury of the Church. Today we're finishing up our instruction on the modes. Today we'll be focusing on modes 2, 4, 6, and 8, known as the Plagal Modes. Enjoy. We finished last day talking about the first of the modes, the authentic modes, the odd-numbered ones. And now we're going to talk about the Plagal Modes. Plagal modes indicating that the final or the home base note is not the first note of the scale, it's not the high note of the scale, the end of the scale, but it's somewhere in between. Now, I have illustrated this in my example by showing you the Dorian mode on top, which you have already seen. This note is the D, and it starts on D. This is the Dorian mode. You are familiar with the sound of the Dorian mode. Now, it has a Plagal mode, and it starts on A, and it goes to A, and the final, I've indicated, I blackened it in to show the relationship, is the D. That shows the relationship of the authentic mode to its Plagal mode. Is the same final note or the same home base note. So you see that what we're talking about here, this is always going to be where the piece is going to repose on the final in the Dorian as well as the hypodorian, is that there is a lower range here. It's not going to be singing up here in the higher range and reposing here. It's going to maybe start here, but it's going to dip down into the lower range and not go so high. Now, when I say high and low, it's always a relative thing because we can transpose these to any key we want. But I'm talking about high or low in relation to the home base note, right, to this D. So Dorian, hypodorian. The numbers 1 and 2. So I'm going to play for you. I'll play you the range, but the range doesn't help you. I'm going to play from the A to A. That's really not what the mode is exactly, but I'll play it. But that would give you a false impression because it's really this. There's your home base. There's the final. You see, it has that bottom to it that the Dorian would not have. So it's a kind of Dorian mode. It's derived from the Dorian, but it has a different range. All right? Now, it also has its dominant, and the dominant is F, Fa. If you remember in the Dorian, I should have done this. Your dominant note is La. So in the Kyrie, that we're saying, Kyrie eleison. It only dipped down one note, but it had a lot of activity around here. Christe. You see, it starts on the dominant. But now we are going to be talking about a different range, and the note of secondary prominence, primary prominence is going to be the final, is going to be Fa or F. So we are going to take a look now at a chant from the book Chants of the Church, which is in the hypodorian mode. And I'm going to choose an example. Unfortunately, it's not so much an authentic Gregorian chant, but I'm going to do one that will be familiar to you again, and it's the chant O Filii et Filiae. It's on page 114. No, it's not on page, well, it's page 118, I'm sorry. 118. There we are, it's at the bottom of the page. Zoom in there. You see that it's marked second mode? There's your do, or there's your C note, your clef, your C clef. And there's, it ends on La. So it starts on A. Now, this piece, although it's in the second mode, reposes on A, which is unusual because ordinarily the second mode reposes on Re, and there's a final. If you turn to page 30 and you look at the Gloria, this also may be familiar to you. We do sing it here in church. Gloria in excelsis Deo. You'll notice now we have the fa clef, the F clef. So this, if this is F, this is D, and it comes to conclusion on Re, on the note D, and exactly where it should. And you see the next phrase, the next F, the double bar, which is a full stop, again is D, D. And here we have we have Do. That's an unusual one. It comes back here to D. Okay, so but that's typical. This is more typical second mode chant. And you also note that the dominant note in the second mode is Fa. This is F, or right. So notice all the embellishment here around the note F. Here it starts, here's an F, 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 ending on Re. So this is a good example, a typical example of a second mode chant. Right? So we have Dorian and Hypodorian. Now we come to the Phrygian and the Hypophrygian. If you remember, the Phrygian mode starts on E, and goes up to E. The Hypophrygian mode is going to start on B and go to B. As far as range is concerned, I'm going to put the you see here our final, this is Hypophrygian now, right? So our final is E. This is the Phrygian mode. The Hypophrygian is going to be also on an E. And the tenor, or the dominant note, is going to be A. All right? So in the Plagal mode, we have this note as our final or resting place, and you will see that the range is extended underneath for the Plagal mode. Right? This is the Phrygian, this is the Hypophrygian mode. Mode number 4. So, I play the Phrygian for you to remind you of that unusual sound again, of the half step being right at the beginning of the scale, from E to F. It sounds this way. And now I'm going to play the same. These extra notes down here indicate a Plagal mode. So the range of this chant if we find one in the fourth mode in our book, will be around the final, above and below as well, which is the characteristic of the plagal mode. Let's see if we have one. We have Sanctus of Mass 10. It should be in your book on page 29. So you see it begins on E, and you see that it goes, well, it goes somewhat low, not terribly low, but in any case, it doesn't go very high. You see, it just hovers around the E, goes just a little bit up, and comes back down. So I play for you the Sanctus. Sanctus, 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 Dominus Deus Sabaoth, pleni sunt celi et terra. Always coming back to our home base note, which is, it takes great predominance in the piece. Occasionally, it'll come up to La. Here's our tenor. It's as high as it is our dominant note. Hosanna in excelsis. It's as far as it goes. It's a very limited range. Chant a very limited range. All right, so far we've done two of the plagal modes, and now we come to the Hypolydian mode. So we need to come to that. This is the one that has that note that we would like to change here, this note B, to accommodate our hearing, our modern ears, but we will not do that. We are going to put the auxiliary notes down here and finish the scale. You can see here our final. A is going to be our dominant. Our final here is Do. Not final, our dominant. This is our final in both modes, 5 and 6. We're talking about substantially this one. Our final is F. Our dominant will be A, whereas in the authentic mode, the major one, it's on Do. Now, let me play for you the Lydian mode. And so the scale is those extra notes down there, coming back to cadence here. If we play it from range to range, we have a C major scale, but that's deceptive because that sounds like that's home bass, and we're not doing that. Home bass is here on the F. All right? Let's see an example. An example would be the Ave Verum. And we will find that in your Chants of the Church on page 88. There you see, we are in the 6th mode. You see F is our final. And you see at the cadence, it's not a cadence really, but the stopping point here at the member bar, we have our dominant note, A. So we begin, as we should, on the home bass note, which is F. We come to a little bit of rest halfway in the first line. We rest on the dominant note. I'm going to play the familiar, maybe you know the chant, Ave Verum. I'll play it as we know it first. natur de Maria Virgine. Now, I'll play it without the flat. We don't like to hear that sound, you see. It's harsh to us. So it was changed, perhaps, or perhaps it was original to this chant. But in the sixth mode, we will often see this happen, as we did with the Lydian. We will see the flat being added. So this is in the hypo-Lydian mode. Come back to our clef. And on top, I'm going to put the Mixolydian mode. Which is from G to G. Would almost be a G major scale, except for the 7th degree, which is an F natural, for those of you who know modern music. And we're going to go down. So we see our final here. Here's our dominant. And here's our dominant in this mode. Now there's no way to know the dominants except you memorize them. It's easy to know that Dorian starts on D, Phrygian on E, Lydian on F, Mixolydian on G. And then the hypos are the same same finals. All right, so let's look at the hypomixolydian and the mixolydian. I remind you of the mixolydian mode. And now we have the same. I'll play something mixolydian. And now hypomixolydian. See, we have horrible piece of music, but just to give you the idea of this limited range on top and embracing also the lower notes. If we look in our Chants of the Church, a very familiar piece will be Veni Creator Spiritus, and it should be on page 157. Each stanza has the same melody. You'll see the mode is marked, mode 8. You see our C clef on the third line. It ends on G, which is true to form, because it is the final of this mode. And you see that there's a lot, well, it's not so much underneath, but it doesn't go terribly high. All right? You see the prominence of the note C, which is the tenor or the dominant note. The word tenor and dominant can be interchanged, depending on what book you're using. So you see here's our Do. See, there's quite a bit of activity hovering around that pitch where the clef is, the third line from the bottom. And everyone knows this chant, I believe. Those who know any chant would know the Veni Creator Spiritus. Veni Creator Spiritus. Well, let me play it in the familiar range. So it's all. So it gets kind of high. Comes to a little rest here on the dominant. And ends on the final of the mode. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned. Next time we'll be going back into our discussion of rhythm. We'll see you then. God bless you.